Hello and welcome. This video is from NBC 10 Boston. It pertains to the Karen Reed case, the Sandra Birchmore case, and the Enrique Delgado-Garcia case. All three of them are related to one another because they involve law enforcement, corruption, and I just love how NBC 10 Boston put them together, and I love that NBC 10 Boston is documenting what the people in Dedham are saying about the four victims in these cases: John O'Keefe, Karen Reed, Sandra Birchmore, and Enrique Delgado-Garcia.
6 tonight, a question. Who polices the police? Good evening, I'm Glenn Jones.
And I'm Priscilla Casper. So 3 major cases that we have been following are all in the headlines today, and they all involve
And I just want to say, that's an excellent question. Who polices the police? Right. That is something that everybody should want to know about in this country. Who polices your local police department? Who regulates them? Is there enough oversight? Does your local police department just do what they want to do? Or are they respectable? Do they treat you and your neighbors like human beings? Or do they run their own show, like we have seen in the Karen Reed case, the Sandra Birchmore case, and now the Enrique Delgado-Garcia case? And I am aware that I offended some people with my views on what is happening in the Middle East, with my views about the US government and the FBI and the CIA. But it's the same question for them too, people. Who polices the US government? Who polices the FBI and the CIA? Who polices our defense? Because if you can only put yourself in the realm of what is happening to citizens in your own country, if you can only care about the Karen Reed case or the Sandra Birchmore case or the Enrique Delgado-Garcia case, but you can't care about what your own government, your own US government is doing in other countries and has been doing in other countries for decades, for centuries, then to me, this channel is not for you. I did not create this channel just for Karen Reed or for victims in my state, in the state of Massachusetts, where I live. I did not create this channel just to select the trending stories or the popular high-profile cases. That's not what this channel is for. I am not one of those YouTubers. I'm not here for clicks or views. I'm here to be a voice and to hold those responsible, to hold those accountable who abuse their power. Because there's enough of that to go around, people. There's so much content on that I can provide on just how governments in general, not just here, but everywhere, abuse their power. There has never, guys, not once in history was there ever a peaceful government. And that should bother everybody. To me, the existence of government means there needs to be oversight. There needs to be accountability. The citizens have to be paying attention, and they have to be asking the question, who polices the police? Who governs the government? My channel is called Analyze because I want us all to become better analyzers. We should all be striving to live in the truth and to live in justice, to live in a fairer world, a less psychopathic world. And not just in Massachusetts, not just in the US, but everywhere. And if I offend you, because of those views, then this channel is just not for you. You're welcome to leave. I'm not forcing anyone to stay. I care about the victims in the state I live in, but I care about the victims everywhere too. I don't just pick up the popular stories, people. I'm doing this for me, for the things I care about, and for everyone else, for victims everywhere. And if you don't care about victims everywhere, like I said, you're welcome to unsubscribe. Funny enough, I have never asked anyone to subscribe. I've had this channel for a few months. I had my first channel in 2009, and I didn't do it then either. I have never asked anyone to like or subscribe ever, because I'm not here for that. You guys can do what you want to do. I'm just telling you that if I offend you, I don't I don't think this is a channel for you. It's that simple. There are plenty of other content creators. My channel is about becoming a good analyzer. It is about making sure that we are all analyzing the things in our lives, the things that directly impact us. And when I speak about government, whether it be local, federal, or national, or international, I speak about it because government is the most powerful structure that the average human being has to deal with. It is the one force in the world that controls a majority of people on this planet, government. And it's something I am passionate about. But not just government, there are other topics as well. But it is through government that many of us are victimized. It is through people who abuse their power that many of us are victimized. And I want to help create less victims. I want to help create more powerful individuals in our world who can discern information, analyze information, and be real critical thinkers. Because knowledge is power. And if you can see the truth for what it is, if you can see the corruption for what it is, then you can be empowered to know what's better for you and everyone around you. And we can all at least agree that corruption is not good for anybody. And yet, it prevails. Corruption prevails, especially in systems of power, especially in law enforcement and government, which are intertwined. Law enforcement enforces government. So anyway, I'm not here to offend anybody, but if I do, it just means this channel is not for you. It's that simple. I'm not changing my passions or my channel to appease everybody. It's that simple. I don't just care about people in Massachusetts. I also care about people around the world, especially when my own government is victimizing them. Let's keep watching.
Allegations of inappropriate behavior from law enforcement. First, there's Karen Reed, who was accused of killing her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. During her trial, vulgar text messages sent between troopers were made public, Well, now the NBC 10 investigators are learning more about whether supervisors failed to take action.
Then there's the murder of Sandra Birchmore. A former officer is accused of killing her and staging her death as a suicide. He's also said to have fathered her unborn child.
And most recently, the death of State Police Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. What happened at the new Braintree Police Academy and who is responsible for investigating it? So far, no answers have been given.
Concerns about how these cases are being handled led to a crowd of people on Beacon Hill today, all demanding accountability and action. Tonight, our team takes a look at those concerns and the cases that sparked them.
We do want to begin with our NBC 10's Eli Rosenberg joining us live at the State House, the site of today's demonstration. Eli, good evening.
Good evening, Priscilla. Dozens of people out here for several hours this afternoon. Many have been out here for every single rally, attended every single day of Karen Reed's 9-week trial, but others were out here for the first time. In the crowd outside the State House, Margaret Donabed, here because she was moved to action, she says.
I'm not the kind of person who would normally do something like this.
So Donabed spending Thursday afternoon here.
Thank you all.
Also here, Karen Reed's brother, speaking in his first interview since a new prosecutor was appointed in his sister's case.
We firmly believe the facts are on our side, and those will come out again in court. Facts don't change.
This rally intended to continue to shine a spotlight on the deaths.
I do appreciate that he said that confidently. Facts don't change, and I agree with him. The facts in the Karen Reed case, they do not change. They're permanent in the minds of all of us who understand what really happened, or at the very least, we understand what didn't happen, which is Karen Reed did not hit John O'Keefe with her SUV.
Of several people, from Boston police officer John O'Keefe to Sandra Birchmore to the most recent death of Enrique Delgado-Garcia. The 25-year-old died last week after suffering injuries during a trip.
That sign on one side, it read, Enrique no mas, and Enrique was murdered on the other side. And no mas means no more in Spanish, if you didn't know. So on one side of the sign, it reads no more, and on the other side, it reads that he was murdered. And a lot of people in Massachusetts believe he was murdered.
Training exercise at the State Police Academy.
We want to know what happened to him because what happened in that training exercise doesn't make sense. We just want transparency.
What's coming out of MSP in regards to the...
That's exactly the point of my channel, people. What she just said. We just want transparency. Exactly. We should all want transparency. I mean, I'm not trying to tell you what you should want. But at the same time, I feel like we should all want transparency. We should, especially when it comes to, again, institutions of power. Institutions of power that often, regularly, on a regular basis in this country, abuse their power. There absolutely needs to be transparency. And again, the U.S. government itself, in and of itself, is no exception to me. And it shouldn't be to you either.
Young man out in New Braintree is troubling. What happened? Who knows? I don't know. But it is troubling, concerning.
This is the Karen Reed movement.
Many out here this afternoon have been regulars, appearing outside court during Reed's 9-week trial.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
And with that ending in a mistrial, they say they plan to continue these rallies in support of her and everyone else.
Every day, I think it can't possibly get worse, can it? And every day, it seems as though something else remarkable happens.
Right. That's an excellent point, and it is so true. Especially here in Massachusetts, it seems like it's one thing after another. You think they can only be so corrupt, and then they surprise you with more corruption.
And organizers tell us more rallies like what we saw out here this afternoon will happen in the coming months. Karen Reed's second trial now slated for late January. Meanwhile, the investigations involving Birchmore and Delgado continue this evening. Live outside the State House, Eli Rosenberg, NBC 10 Boston.
And I don't know why they don't mention this, but it's only scheduled for January 2025 if the appeal does not go through, because the Karen Read defense team has filed their appeal. And while it's in review, the actual trial is on hold. So it's not a guarantee that there will be a trial in January.
The NBC 10 investigators has new information relating to the Karen Read trial. Massachusetts State Police say there's not enough evidence to prove a high-ranking officer failed to take action against inappropriate text messages. You might remember the shocking testimony of Trooper Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in the case, reading those messages aloud in court. He's now suspended without pay. NBC 10 investigator Ryan Kath obtained a copy of an internal affairs probe into the situation and joins us live in studio with what it reveals.
And Glenn, the report focuses on a text thread between Proctor and several other state troopers, including Lieutenant John Fanning. The messages included unprofessional and derogatory remarks about Read, which the defense argued showed a bias against their client during the investigation. The question tonight, did Fanning fail in his duty to supervise Proctor for the inappropriate behavior? In the sensational Karen Read murder trial, this day of testimony perhaps the most explosive.
Unprofessional comments I should not have made.
Lead investigator Michael Proctor forced to read inappropriate texts in open court that he sent in a chat with other state troopers and his immediate supervisor, Sergeant Yuri Buchanek. Here's what Proctor wrote when someone in the group posted a photo of Read's attorney, David Yannetti.
Funny, I'm going through his client's phone. No nude so far. I hate that man. I truly hate him.
The text thread also included Lieutenant John Fanning, seen here talking at a local school. According to this internal affairs report the NBC 10 investigators obtained, shortly after the case ended at a mistrial, a state police detective investigated Fanning's role in the exchange and whether he failed to adequately supervise by not taking appropriate action. It's something defense attorneys questioned Proctor about on the stand.
Not one, but two of your supervisors, correct?
Right.
Did either Trooper Fanning or Trooper Buchanek dress you down in a responsive text message?
But the phone records revealed Sergeant Buchanek laughed at the photo of Yannetti and liked the derogatory comment about Read. Meantime, Fanning, the high-ranking lieutenant, was silent in the conversation. He later told investigators he was on vacation with family in North Carolina at the time, and that if he'd seen the texts, he would have addressed the comments.
Okay, so these came from me.
That's a convenient. So what happened when you got back, Fanning? What happened when you got back from vacation? You never received those messages? You didn't hold Trooper Proctor accountable when you got back from vacation? I'm not buying it. Obviously, Michael Proctor felt comfortable sending those text messages to Fanning and Buchanek. Obviously. His superiors. Hello, obviously, these are his bosses, and it's obviously a culture he was permitted to have in his department with his superiors.
It wasn't until Proctor's testimony that Fanning said he learned he was on the vulgar text thread. The detective who conducted the internal investigation determined there was not evidence to prove or disprove the allegation and concluded it was not sustained. So Fanning is also tied to the...
Right? Convenient. So much for and internal affairs. The U.S. government should have internal affairs too. There should be an internal affairs everywhere. But at the same time, look at what this internal affairs investigation concluded. Look at it. Look at what it concluded. What's the point of having an internal affairs investigation if it's just going to be the conclusion's going to be in favor of the corruption? What's the point?
Controversial case of Sandra Birchmore, which you just heard Eli talk about. He was among the state troopers who investigated her death, which was initially ruled a suicide. It wasn't until federal authorities intervened that a former Stoughton police officer was recently arrested and charged with her murder. Live in the studio, Ryan Kath, NBC 10 Investigations.
And this is bad. NBC 10 Boston. They need to tell the story accurately. It wasn't because of the federal investigation. It was because of a secondary medical exam that was conducted privately, that the government didn't pay for, by the way. It was a secondary medical exam that was conducted privately. And that's when the federal investigation began, people. The NBC 10 Boston needs to tell it accurately. The federal government did not step in until a secondary medical exam took place.
Okay, Ryan, let's stay on the Birchmore case. William Farwell, another former Stoughton police officer, was due to get a hearing today about the suspension of his police certification. The NBC 10 investigators has learned the Massachusetts Post Commission's private meeting did not have enough attending commissioners, so it was pushed back to a later date. William Farwell is the twin brother of Matthew Farwell, the man charged with killing Birchmore. Prosecutors say Matthew is also the father of Birchmore's unborn child. William has not been charged in the case, but documents allege he also had a sexual relationship with Birchmore.
Glenn, then there is State Police Trooper Enrique Delgado-Garcia. Today marks 1 week since he was hospitalized after taking part in a training exercise, but we still don't know what agency will oversee the investigation into his death. Our NBC 10's Bianca Beltran continuing our team coverage tonight live in Worcester with what she's uncovered. Bianca.
Well, Priscilla, it has not been easy getting an answer to that question. Who polices the police within the state of Massachusetts? And today we asked Governor Maura Healey about public trust in these types of investigations, given that there is no apparent clear answer regarding oversight and accountability of the Massachusetts State Police.
Is there any other agency providing an independent oversight of MSP?
Not that I'm aware of.
Todd McGee is a former Massachusetts State Police instructor, now security analyst. He says typically incidents that occur at the State Police Academy are subject to internal affairs investigations. State police detectives with the Worcester District Attorney's Office have also been tasked with investigating incidents at the academy, such as recruits who were injured 2 years ago during a crawling exercise that resulted in burns. The Worcester DA said state police detectives have begun an investigation into the death of Enrique Delgado-Garcia, a recruit who died last week after participating in a training exercise at the State Police Academy. But the case will be handed over to another agency that does not have a conflict of interest.
I'm envisioning that there might be a involvement with the Department of Justice. Perhaps the FBI may become the lead investigative agency, and that would not surprise me. That seems to be the appropriate structure.
A week after Delgado-Garcia was hospitalized.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just going to let the MSP, the Massachusetts State Troopers, run themselves after all this bullshit, then the state of Massachusetts, again, it is not a state that anybody should be living in. If the Massachusetts State Troopers just get to do whatever they want to do, and when internal investigations are conducted, they end up in favor of the crooked state troopers. What the hell is going on? You know, it's like, to me at this point that there should be an answer, not like, oh, we don't know who is going to investigate it other than internal affairs. To me, there should be a definitive answer when state troopers fuck up, when police departments fuck up. There's an immediate response. Somebody comes in and investigates. Somebody who is objective and doesn't care what happens to those police officers or those state troopers. Unlike internal affairs, because often internal affairs, people that investigate internal affairs, those people are in the departments. They work in the departments. So often in a police department, for example, the internal affairs department is inside the police department. So they work together. They could become friends, and then they're going to investigate each other when shit hits the fan. Like, I'm telling you guys, there needs to be more oversight in every single police department in this country, not just in Massachusetts. And again, to me, there needs to be more oversight in the U.S. government itself. It all like rolls down the hill. Okay, like I've said in other videos, the FBI is the oversight of every single police department in the U.S. But then the FBI themselves should also have oversight, but they don't. You will find that the FBI doesn't. They don't. They get to do what they want to do time and time again, whether it's corrupt or not. Sometimes the FBI helps. Sometimes they solve cases and they help. Some people get justice because of the FBI, but some other people don't get justice. Some people get corruption because of the FBI. So I'm just saying, guys, it trickles down from the top, and that's the FBI.
Hospitalized, no agency has been named. His death prompting questions about what trainees experience at the State Police Academy and who provides oversight and accountability.
I have oversight, and I take that charge really seriously because I want to make sure that, for the public's sake, we're giving the very best to law enforcement in terms of support, best training, best instruction. And, it also goes back to why we've got to have this particular incident investigated with answers as quickly as possible.
She so often when the governor is asked questions, she smiles and very nonchalantly answers the questions. Like when she was asked about the messages, the correspondences with the state troopers during the Karen Reed trial, she was asked about it and she provided a very short answer. But, still not much has happened with that on her end. She's just a person. She's just a face, another politician just there. But ultimately, notice how she didn't mention the citizens. She said it would be better for the law enforcers. She didn't say anything about it being better for the citizens. Of course it would be better for the citizens. Why aren't you talking about the people who you're overseeing as a governor, Maura Healey? Notice how she completely leaves out the Massachusetts residents.
Now, when it comes to the investigation of the death of Enrique Delgado-Garcia, a spokesperson for the Worcester District Attorney's Office tells me that they are not seeking a judicial inquest, which is essentially requesting that a judge determine if a death may have been caused or may have been the result of a crime. Reporting live in Worcester, Massachusetts, I'm Bianca Beltran, NBC 10 Boston.
Bianca, thank you. We will be following all three of these cases very closely as they make their way through the justice system. Be sure to stay with NBC 10 Boston on air and online for the very latest.
Let's watch this next video. This one is from Boston 25. It was uploaded earlier today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Krista Delkin.
And I'm Rachel Keller. Hope you enjoyed the Patriots game. We will head back out live to MetLife Stadium in just a few minutes.
But first, a story 25 Investigates has been working on for weeks. It involves the Sandra Birchmore murder investigation, so let's get right to it.
I'm investigative reporter Ted Daniel. Former Stoughton police officer Matthew Farwell remains in federal custody, charged with killing Sandra Birchmore. State police initially ruled her death as suicide. 25 Investigates is looking back and at a different cop Birchmore knew named Joshua Heel. We have a recording that was never supposed to be made public.
And how she was failed by, manipulated by, and used by people of authority.
When Stoughton police revealed that 3 of their officers had troubling relationships with Sandra Birchmore, the name of an Abington cop also surfaced. Josh Heel previously worked for Stoughton's animal control.
The deputy told me that Heel and the deceased woman were friends and that they had texted quite frequently. I believe it was daily. There was a lot of digital information, he said. He was hoping that Josh would help him connect the dots.
Can you guys just identify yourselves for the recording?
25 Investigates has obtained a recording of then Abington Police Chief David Del Papa in a formal interview with the town attorney. Del Papa says he was told in December 2021 that Josh Heel was a witness in Stoughton's probe. Here he describes getting new information 3 months later.
Birchmore was known to several members of the department as having mental health issues. Sandra had disclosed details about her relationships with other members of the department to Josh in explicit detail.
And according to Del Papa, Heel also had a sexual encounter with Birchmore.
The deputy chief had disclosed to me that he had received oral sex from a woman and basically told him that it happened off duty and extramarital affairs on any of my business.
And this is a guy who was working at schools at the time.
That's right. Josh Heel was an Abington school resource officer.
Just predators after predator. How many is that now that we know of? 4. There are at least 4 members of law enforcement between Stoughton and Abington. Between those 2 police departments, there are at least 4 men that we know of who were sexually involved with Sandra Birchmore. I mean, she was being exploited by people in positions of power. And these people had access to other children.
And police comfort dog handler. Kirk Minahan reported extensively on Birchmore and Heel in season 2 of his podcast called The Case.
It seems to me, minute 1, you find out, you put this guy on leave until you figure your stuff out. And if he's exonerated, fine, back to work. But of course, he wasn't exonerated.
Heel continued to work in the schools for another 6 months until the day.
I don't know if you saw that photo, but he's there standing with children. And he continued to work in schools, people. My brain's about to explode.
After Del Papa learned that Heel's name had been mistakenly left unredacted in a report that was going to be shared with the media.
They wanted to give us a heads up because it was going to be a disaster. So I got off the phone. I called Josh in and told him, you were on admin leave. At that point, I still didn't know the full breadth of Stone's investigation as far as one of the officers having relations with this woman when she was underage and the grooming and all that.
We asked Abington Town Manager Scott Lambiase if Heel should have been taken out of the schools sooner, based on what Del Papa did know.
As a police officer and a member of a union, civil service, there's steps that you have to go through before you can actually put somebody on administrative leave or begin an investigation. But I believe that once we actually knew the full depth and confirmation on what had actually happened, we acted pretty quickly.
Heel remained on paid leave until he resigned in early 2023. In a statement, Heel's attorney tells 25 Investigates Heel is a material witness, and Mr. Heel has not now, has not been ever, and is not going to be the target of any criminal charges in the future because he has not broken any laws.
Because it happened in 2021, and by that point Sandra was an adult, right? So it wasn't illegal, people, right? There's no corruption here, right? An officer just sleeping on the side with somebody, right, who's also involved with other officers from other police departments. He didn't break any laws, but then why did he resign? He didn't do anything wrong. Why did he resign a year after the 3 officers from Stoughton resigned? He didn't do anything wrong, but why resign?
Del Papa stepped down in May 2024 in what the town describes as a mutual separation. Abington hired an outside investigator that concluded Del Papa was professional and diligent in it.
Amazing how all of these members of law enforcement resigned within the last 2 years, between 2022 and 2024.
Handling of Heel. Del Papa tells us what happened to Birchmore is an absolute tragedy. He says, given the very limited information, my response was appropriate to what I knew at the time. Kirk Minahan sees it differently.
The buck was passed a lot of times. I think Del Papa should own up for his failures in this entire situation.
Days before Del Papa played.
Thank you. Somebody paying attention, somebody discerning the information and being a good analyzer. If you knew about it in 2021, dude, Del Papa, why didn't you do anything sooner? The dude the guy didn't quit until 2023. That was two whole years. And then Del Papa didn't resign until this year, until 2024. Like, just to me, guys, this just goes to show that there are multiple members of law enforcement in the state of Massachusetts who are used to doing whatever the fuck they want to do, whether it's moral or not, whether their superiors know about it or not, because their superiors obviously don't care. I mean, example after example. Superiors just kind of, it's none of my business, you know, look the other way, as Alan Jackson would say. It's none of their business, so they just stay out of it, you know. Like, it's such bullshit. And again, it's obviously the culture, and it transcends between departments. You've got Abington, Stoughton, Canton, Boston. It's disgusting. We're gonna watch another one.
Self is really hard, but like I said, for people like me or people like Delgado, Spanish or Black, it's really hard.
New at 6, a former classmate of the Massachusetts State Police recruit who died after training says the State Police Academy is run more like a fraternity and not everyone is welcome. The WB's...
Yep. Knew it. It's the culture. It's more like a boys' club, people.
The I-Team was the first to report Enrique Delgado-Garcia was critically injured in the boxing ring at the academy. Thanks for staying with us tonight. I'm Lisa Hughes.
And I'm David Wade. The former recruit who spoke with the I-Team says he experienced hazing at the police academy and says Black and Hispanic people were treated differently. WBZ Chief Investigator Cheryl Fiandaca here now with the exclusive story. Cheryl?
Well, Lisa, David, the recruit, says he is heartbroken about his friend and former classmate. He says he expected the police academy to be tough and was prepared for difficult training, but he says he was not prepared for the harassment, humiliation, and discrimination he suffered. And after 18 weeks of training, the police cut him from the class. The I-Team was there when he was finally ready to unpack his academy bags.
This is everything that I have in my bag.
For this former Massachusetts State Police recruit, these photos showing him wearing an academy uniform are all that's left of his dream.
Since I came here in the country, my dream was like to be a state trooper.
The state police dismissed the Haitian immigrant from the academy just 6 weeks before graduation. Enrique Delgado-Garcia was his carpool buddy and his classmate. He died last week after sources say he was seriously injured during a boxing training exercise where trainees pair up and fight each other.
He was a good kid. He was really, really good, helping me, helping everybody. The academy himself is really hard for people like me or people like Delgado, Spanish or Black. It's really hard. They make it really hard for you. I know they don't like.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone who thinks that because Massachusetts is in New England, you know, and because it's in the North, there's less racism. Like, I just disagree, especially in parts of Vermont. There are parts of Vermont people that there's virtually no diversity. The more north you go, the less diversity there is. It's Caucasians everywhere. So I'm just saying, there are absolutely people in Massachusetts and other parts of New England who are tribalistic, and a little racist, maybe a lot of racist. And for whatever reason, it's so often like groups of Irishmen or groups of Italians. For whatever reason, it's like if you're Irish or Italian, it's okay. But if you're another kind of Mediterranean, like Spanish, of Spanish descent, you know, it's not okay. You know, Italy and Spain, they're Mediterranean countries, but for whatever reason, there's separatist identification in that. You know, Italians very commonly, especially around here, talk shit about Hispanics. And, you know, I think there's racism in every ethnicity. I've witnessed it. Everybody has the tendency to be a bit tribalistic, especially to people who don't speak their language or don't look like they do. In my opinion, everybody in every single race has shown some sort of racism. I have never met anybody or known any ethnicity who wasn't racist. So I'm just saying it's everywhere. It doesn't matter where you live. But I think it's less in some parts of the country than others. And I'm just saying it is so true that a lot of Massachusetts state troopers are Caucasian. I mean, again, I live in Massachusetts. I drive everywhere in Massachusetts. So often when a state trooper is walking to the car they just pulled over, it's a Caucasian. It's a tall Caucasian male.
They show you that.
He does not know what happened to his friend, but says he was subjected to hazing and harassment from the second week of training.
The first thing that gonna wake me up, everybody come to my home. They make everybody come to my home. Go home, go home, go home, go home, go home. Like, imagine like 180 people like telling you, go home, you don't deserve to be here. It was a lot for me.
An Army reservist, he survived boot camp and 4 years in the military, but says his experience at the State Police Academy was more like a fraternity hazing instead of elite law enforcement training.
Making me sweep the floor with my uniform, like, and my stomach, like, it's not a training. What is the training? And that make me counting breaks after everybody sleeping. And like trooper telling me, like, he will do everything that in his power to not graduate because I don't deserve to be here.
All of this heartbreaking to hear for his wife and young family who sacrificed so he could go to the academy and realize his dream.
We come here. And if you remember from the other news report that there isn't really an internal investigation. There is no an internal affairs for the Massachusetts state troopers. Nobody investigates them. It's ultimately up to the FBI and the DOJ. So if this man has all these terrible experiences while being a recruit for the MSP, he didn't have anybody he could report it to. And just imagine being a migrant. Some people call them immigrants. I call them migrants. Imagine being a migrant from Haiti, speaking in your accent, looking the way you do in your complexion, and being surrounded by people who are like dominantly Caucasian males. And again, imagine having a friend, a Hispanic friend, Enrique Delgado-Garcia, who dies during his training, who some say is murdered during his training. I mean, have we heard of a Caucasian being murdered during their training for the MSP?
And for him to want to do better. And you get there, you face with you being humiliated, you being discriminated. Training is training. I understand that. I'm in the military. I know boot camp. Training is training. You have to teach your trainees how to really protect themselves out there.
To me, the whoever trained him, they should be investigated, and they should be able to provide documentation of his training and provide statements from the people observing his training. Who are the supervisors? Who was supervising his training? What were the issues? Why was he terminated? Because if this guy came from boot camp like his wife, they came from experience in military and army, then what was the problem? I mean, if you can do the military and the army, then you can be a law enforcer. Like what was the problem? Like, I would love for an investigation to take place here, to figure out what this guy did wrong and why he was terminated. And if in fact there was discrimination, and I'm not saying I don't believe him, I'm saying that there should be an investigation to determine if in fact there is discrimination going on at the MSP. And I mean, I think there is without the investigation. I think there is because, again, to me, what I've seen living here for the last several years, a majority of state troopers are tall Caucasian males. I've never seen any other complexion on these highways.
But there's nowhere it says in the book that you need to break someone down so low to where they can't study, they can't pass a common sense exam.
He was let go by the state police on August 23rd.
Since that, in the second week on the academy until the 18 weeks, it was really hell for me. It was really hell every day for me.
The recruit tells us he plans to visit his former classmate's family to pay his respects. The I-team reached out to the state police for comment, but we did not hear back.
Yeah, and they probably won't hear back. Really fucked up.
Western Mass News. Good Wednesday evening, everyone. Welcome to Western Mass News at 6. I'm Chris Pisano.
And I'm Abby Carnevale. Mourning continues for communities across the Bay State following the death of a 25-year-old state police trainee, Enrique Delgado-Garcia, who died during a training exercise last Thursday. Local leaders are calling for an investigation into the death of the Worcester native, who has ties to Western Mass, being a graduate of Westfield State University's criminal justice program. Western Mass News reporter Glenn Kittle joins us live from Westfield with more on what's next for this case. Glenn?
Yeah, Chris, Abby, Enrique Delgado-Garcia was an athlete here at Westfield State University on the cross-country and track teams. He was also a graduate of the criminal justice program here at Westfield State. Now, calls into the investigation of the death of Enrique Delgado-Garcia tonight are growing stronger.
There absolutely needs to be just a full-on, expansive investigation to what happened here.
State Senator John Vilas calling for a thorough investigation into the death of Massachusetts State Police trainee Enrique Delgado-Garcia. The 25-year-old Worcester native died from injuries he suffered during a training exercise at the State Police Academy last week. Here in Western Mass, Delgado-Garcia's college alma mater, Westfield State University, where he was a student athlete and criminal justice graduate, is mourning his death, telling Western Mass News. Those lucky enough to share space with Enrique had the gift of experiencing his warm smile, positive outlook on life, and the ongoing support of love that he constantly shared with others. We extend our deepest sympathies and condolences to Enrique's family, friends, and OWL teammates. Meanwhile, Western New England University criminal justice professor Craig Dunton is sharing his insight on the state police training program, telling Western Mass News the regiment is physically and mentally demanding.
It is intended to somewhat mirror like boot camp in the military to kind of, proverbially break somebody down and build them back up. And in this case, especially, a lot of the physical components to it is, intended to kind of mirror what worst case scenario could be while they're on the job.
Worcester County District Attorney Joe Early is calling for an investigation into Delgado-Garcia's death. However, his office will have to hand that off to someone else. Early has a conflict of interest. Delgado-Garcia previously worked in the DA's office as a victim witness advocate. Early is speaking with third-party investigators to take the lead in this case. Massachusetts Attorney General Andrea Campbell.
Just from all the reports, it seems like Enrique Delgado-Garcia was educated and he had experience in other departments in the state. Like the MSP wasn't his first rodeo. He would have been an excellent state trooper with all his credentials. It is really sad. It is so sad what they did to him.
Is assisting DA Early in this case, sending a statement to Western Mass News that says in part, quote, I am in conversation with the Worcester County DA's office and other agencies about identifying the appropriate and most objective prosecutorial authority to take over this important investigation. I will continue to pray for Enrique's family, friends, and fellow trainees. In the meantime, Early is left with memories following the young man's death.
He was one of the first ones to help. Whether it was the victims he was advocating for, his fellow co-workers, he always did so with one of the biggest smiles that you've ever seen.
There has been a GoFundMe set up for Delgado-Garcia's family to help with funeral costs. If you would like to donate, we'll include a link on our website at westernmassnews.com. Reporting live in Westfield, Glenn Kittle for Western Mass News.
All right, Glenn, thank you for that live report. It's been almost 2 years since 2 East Longmeadow residents were killed while driving the wrong way on I-91.
Himself is...
So, anyway, I will leave the links to all of those videos in the description below. Again, to anyone I offend with my world views, national and international views, I invite you to not follow me. This channel is not for you. I am here to hold everyone accountable, mainly people in positions of power. In positions of power that are notorious, positions of power which are notorious for abusing power, notorious for being corrupt. There needs to be oversight, and we need to be analyzing. We need to be paying attention. And we need to know what's going on to the people around us and everywhere else in the world. If you think that the corruption stops at your local police department, you are wrong. Positions of power should automatically come with oversight, but sadly, unfortunately, so often they do not. And people like you and I become victims. People like Karen Reed, Sandra Birchmore, and Enrique Delgado-Garcia become victims. And John O'Keefe. And all their families and all their friends, they all become victims. And it's the same with the U.S. government. When we go into other countries and we fund wars that kill children and families and destroy lives, destroy cultures, just wipe them off the face of the earth. Like we did with the Palestinian people of Palestine, which is now Israel, then we should care. Again, I'm not here for just the trending stories or for the popular stories. I'm here to hold corrupted power accountable. Because it is the main force in the world that impacts all of us, whether it's local, national, or international. It impacts all of us, and we should all be paying attention. But you don't have to. You don't have to care. There are plenty of other channels. Thank you for watching.